Keith is here as a co-chair of the committee. I'm here as co-chair of the committee. Austin is with the associate students, and there's one vacant position right now. Management Association is John and David. David LeClaire is not here today, I guess.
He's taking over for Kent.
Yeah, so he's taking over for Kent. Okay.
He knew as much as I did, so I haven't seen him for a while.
Dan is here for Danny Hammond, representing him today. Julie is here. Don't know about Penella. Eduardo's here as a guest, or are you representing somebody?
I was told to show up, but I don't know if I'm here for Dustin or as Brac as the president of the academic senate.
Okay.
I do not know.
The academic senate has 3 appointments, and according to our list right now, it's Danny, it's Penella, and it's Julie.
Okay.
But that's fine. Okay. And then classified is Denise, classified Senate, Rudy representing CTA. No, CSEA. It should be CSEA. And then Melva is representing issue CFT.
Correct.
And then Joe is here as a resource associate. Marie is not going to be with us today. She's busy in training. I think Anthony is in the same thing, and Dr. Bell is in a meeting, I believe. Okay, so that's kind of who we are. So we've got an agenda for today's meeting. Let's just go around the table real quick and do some introductions. Again, Bob Miller, Dan.
Dan Haley from the library.
Denise Albright, Classified Senate President, EOPNS Secretary.
Austin King, Vice President of Business Affairs for Associate Students.
Welcome.
Julie Kiotis, faculty.
Joe Simonetti, Business Services.
Keith Overlander, Math faculty.
John Wood, Learning Assistance Center, representing the Management Association.
And we'll just see our guests. Eduardo Cairo, Academic Senate President.
Megan Lee, student. Natalie Mendoza, also student.
Matt Jordan, Academic Affairs.
Victor and Triano, Faculty Association.
Welcome. Okay, thank you. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting number 22, March 28th, 2013. They are in your packet.
I have 23. I don't have 22.
I'm sorry?
I have regular meeting number 23. That's today. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe the agenda doesn't sync up. So let's just say that it is regular meeting number 23. Or we will verify which one it is and make that correction.
Okay.
Do I have a motion? I'm sorry. I need a motion.
Today's agenda says there's meeting number 22.
Right. So
the old one's 23.
Right. So we'll figure it out. We'll sort it out. We'll make that correction. Thank you, Austin. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Discussion.
Okay.
Oh, no, you can't.
I cannot, right?
Research.
Okay.
Sorry, that's right. I need a second from a voting member of the committee.
I'll second.
Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Okay, now discussion. Anybody has anything that they would like to ask or say on this? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'll abstain.
Dan abstains. Julie
wasn't
abstains.
there.
Exactly. And Austin wasn't here. Okay, so the minutes are approved with that one. We'll verify that whether it's meeting 22 or 23. Thank you. Okay, public comment. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to comment?
I'd like to make a comment. I don't know if this is the right time to mention it, but I just heard today that the school's going to be withholding or asking students that took extended spring to repay the money. Is this true?
Repay the money.
The money they received for extended spring.
Financial aid.
Financial aid.
The answer to that is an equivocal no.
Okay. Thank you.
All students will be held harmless in whatever, as we work our way through that.
Thank you.
An unequivocal no, I guess I should say.
All right.
Unequivocal no. Thank you.
Bob, let me follow up. Does that mean the school is going to pay for the money?
We are in the process of reviewing what may need to be paid back to the federal government from a financial aid point of view.
Okay.
And we don't know yet, A, if we have to pay back, B, what that amount would be. but presumably if there was something that needed to be paid back, the college would have to pay those funds as opposed to the students.
Okay.
Okay? But we're in the process of sorting all that out right now. Okay, anything else from anybody?
I'd just like to make a comment in memory of Dave Kraus,
Oh,
who was a
absolutely.
member of this committee, who gave a lot to this school. He cared a great deal and contributed, I remember, to this committee, and I see him in the minutes here. And may it be a reminder to all of us to really enjoy our efforts and our profession here at PCC.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, here.
Okay, so I just, the minutes indicate just officially, the agenda indicates the appointment of these new members, and this was just something to verify today. But I'll just quickly mention it for the sake of the minutes. Dave LeClaire was appointed as Management Association representative replacing Kent Yamauchi.
Yeah.
And then we have one vacancy that Austin will go back to his board and talk about filling.
Can I ask
Yes.
what Dave's position is?
Dave is the Assistant Financial Aid Manager or Director. I'm not sure what his exact title is, but he's a manager.
Okay, I just haven't
in
met him, so I
financial
was
aid.
just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Mhm.
could give him a call if you'd like. He might be over there. Do you want me to step out and call him?
If you want to. And then Julie is our new appointment for the Academic Senate, from the Academic Senate. Rudy is the appointment that is replacing Dave Kraus. It also should be noted for the record that the district has come to an agreement with Issue CFT, principally, that basically states that Issue CFT has an appointment, and that CSCA will have an appointment. In other words, no longer will Issue CFT be required to use one of its appointments as a union representative. Its appointments can be primarily the whatever, I think it's two that you
Yes.
have,
Mhm.
that they can be just two classified Senate representatives, and that the union appointment will be
Its own separate
its own separate entity.
Thank you.
and it will be, in this case, it's CSCA.
Correct.
Did I make that clear enough?
In other words, the classified union issue has their own seat. It's not a classified position, it's just a union position that was given to us.
And how did you get that?
Julio worked very hard on that one, thank you very much.
Well,
At the
basically-
table, at the bargaining table?
No.
Basically, that was, it was, what would you call it?
Can we say it was I don't want to be stepping out of bounds, can we say that it was a negotiated item per our,
Well, it was a grievance, it was
Is there a
agreed.
it was
It was
agreement?
agreed through the process,
Yes.
it went through the mediation process, and in mediation, it was agreed that the district would agree to this. You guys might recall that at one time, the district had taken the position that these were shared governance bodies, AB 1725 bodies. And as a result of that, the Academic Senate represented the faculty. The Classified Senate represented the classified employees. Issue, before it was Issue CFT, took issue with that and said that even though it was agreed upon by the group of people, a representative from the Academic Senate, a representative from the Classified Senate, a representative from the Management Association, a representative from the Associated Students, and a representative from the quote-unquote administration, that the representation for all of the 9 standing subcommittees within the College Council would be represented by the shared governance body known as the Academic Senate for Faculty and the shared governance body known as the Classified Senate for classified decided that they did not want to, quote unquote, give up their one of their appointments to a union representative, because what was decided during the time that this group put the ground rules together, and college council discussed those ground rules and voted on those ground rules and accepted those ground rules, is that whenever there was a need for union representation, such as on Brac, issue would have to provide one of its seats to a union representative. So issue took issue with that. They grieved it. It went through a mediation process. At the table, during mediation, it was agreed that for Brac, that if the union got its own representative on Brac, that would satisfy their needs and desires, and that's what they signed on the dotted line for, and we signed on the dotted line for, and that's where we are today. And all of this took place probably 5-6 weeks ago. And it was, the 5-6 weeks ago, in other words, the settlement took place after a process that started probably 12, 14, 15 months ago.
So has the district changed its position? So if the faculty union would like a seat on Brac, how would they go about it? Because you know what the next sentence was going to be.
Yeah, I think that you would basically make that presentation or make that proposal to the administration, and we'll go from there. I can't speak for what the administration feels on that.
Okay.
But certainly if you put it forward, then it would have to be considered.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the response.
Okay, so that'll just make sure everybody's whole on that, and the minutes will somehow reflect what I said in 3 sentences. Okay, something.
Do your magic, Cindy.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay, so Rudy, and then Melva is the appointment. This says Melva Alvarez, so we've got to clarify the E and the F on this, and we will. Okay, so we'll figure that out. So make a note of that, Cindy. Okay, so now we get to some of the things we're going to talk about today. So item 5 is the 12-13 budget report, and in your packets you have Business and College Services 12-13 fiscal report, and I just want to quickly go over this. Oh, you have it up there? Oh, great.
That was good. It'd be hard to read this.
Oh, I see. You guys don't have the small stuff. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Great.
great.
Okay, so we go to the first slide here. Oh, wow.
Yeah, oh, that's better.
Wow. Okay. Let's make a note about this projector. Let's just, on the first line, what you're looking at there, this is as of May 31st, 2013. And what you have is the actuals for May. So we have beginning cash of $7.4 million. And then you see the cash in amounts that are coming in from the various sources. So we have our apportionment. We have the tuition, RDA stands for redevelopment agency, and property tax revenue. Lottery and other income that is also of a local nature. Interfund borrowing, if we had any and we did not during that period where we borrow from ourselves out of our various funds. We have 2 funds that we borrow from. One is Fund 64, which is our GASB post-employment benefit program. And then we have an insurance refund, and what that means is that we were able to we have amassed over a period of years a sum of money tied to our Anthem Blue Cross insurance that because of positive, or I should say because of lower usage of the insurance, we actually accrue some refund on previous premiums. So in this case, that accrued, and we actually drew down on that to the point of $2.3 million to help us with our budget. It was a budgeted, it was a plan in our budget plan, and we drew down on it in May and booked it. Actually, we booked it early in the year, but it's reflected here in May. Then we had cash in from deferred apportionment. We've talked about deferrals over the last many months. So we actually had payment from the state for some of the monies that were owed us. And then we had the trans, these should be capital letters, but it's tax and revenue anticipation note, TRAN, tax and revenue anticipation note, TRAN. And that was an amount of $10 million. And again, that was an amount that was agreed to borrow from the LA County Office of Education and a fund that they developed for that purpose. So then we had cash out, and through May we've expended, and this is all tied to our unrestricted general fund 1, as you can see, and over the 11 months we had cash out of almost $102 million, and it shows the interfund borrowing that we did, and we ended up with a balance of $6.9 million for the month of May. As we project into the end of June, this is a very, very, well, I'll get into it at the next slide a little bit more, but you'll basically see here, this is what we're projecting, and you're showing that, or we're showing at the bottom a balance of $17.4 million is what we're projecting. Now, if we go to the next slide, which really looks bad up there, folks, and I apologize for that.
Might be the lamp.
It's, yeah, we need to make a note about getting a new lamp put in here. We can go make some quick copies and make these bigger, folks, if you want, since you're all dealing with the small pages. Seriously, I can do that if you want.
I'm
Take a
okay.
break. Can
Can I
everybody see
borrow
it?
your glasses, please?
Just remember for the future that we're graying.
Yeah, believe me,
Yeah.
I know. Ask Joe. I literally have a magnifying glass that when he brings stuff to me that I use. But anyway, we're trying to save trees here, and we're ruining eyes but saving trees. Okay, so anyway, on the next slide, 12-13 budget and projected actual. And again, I have to emphasize the word projected, because anybody who's been here a while knows it takes usually through the end of July to actually finally close the books. But on a kind of a general perspective right now, we give you the column of 11-12 actual as a comparison. The revenue is broken down into federal, state, local, and other financing sources. There was an extraordinary thing that happened in 11-12, which was basically we used part of our dental fund to balance our books that year. Otherwise, it's more normally in these smaller amounts that you see in 12-13. So you see the projected. That's the kind of the important line. Federal funding. You see that our state funding, $72 million, down $1 million. The first asterisk says recalculation apportionment decreased by $1 million. So the state did a recalc on us and decided that we were due $1 million less than they thought we were due in the first place. Local funding, 41,557 or 41 million. Shortfall in non-resident tuition, in other words, the number of international students and the number of out-of-state students was less than anticipated. Therefore, there was a shortfall caused by that. Shortfall in the redevelopment agents and in redevelopment agency funds. Now, we expect that we will be made whole for the redevelopment agency funds at some point in time, but we're still waiting to hear exactly how much and when that will be. Then as far as expenditures, you see our academic salaries, and that includes estimate for the adjunct salaries for the Summer 1 session. Okay, Summer 1, prior known as Extended Spring, now Summer 1. So we added, I want to say we had roughly 400 plus sections that we added, so we had to provide funding for those sections, primarily academic salaries. So we budgeted for that. You can see the rest of it, employee benefits and the academic or the supplies and materials and what have you. Long story short, we are anticipating, we had 3 million less revenue. We had, whatever amount that was, 5 million or so less expenses. We are expecting to have a revenue over our estimate, or basically over expenditures of a little over $1 million. Now, in truth, that number will likely be higher, okay? How much higher, we don't know yet, okay? But the number will likely be higher, as it is every year. However, I have to say that there are other things, other adjustments that will be made that will draw down on that higher number, but that's kind of where we are right now. So you see our reserve, you see what our annual operating contingencies are, and you'll see that the projected fund balance at the end is, at the moment, almost $22 million.
Can I ask where the Prop 30 money would be in the revenue section?
The Prop 30 money is tied into the state funding line. You'll see some of that there in that state funding line.
Shouldn't that be 15 million higher than budgeted, since we didn't budget for Prop 30 to pass?
What you see here, this is an accrual budget as opposed to a cash budget, and the Prop 30 money basically is there to fund the deferrals, the monies that are owed us. When we get in and we talk briefly about the memo, which I think we provide here, that I provided the Board of Trustees, I'll explain that a little bit more. Okay.
Okay. Bob, since we're talking about Prop 30 money, I got to ask, when we realized we had the money and we decided to start distributing it out, how was that tied to planning?
Okay, ask your
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Well, all right, one of the things we kept getting dinged on accreditation is that we don't tie budget expenditures to planning. And we got all this money that we weren't expecting, and we started distributing it. Can you tell me how or if it was said, okay, let's go look at our plan, the money should be distributed this way?
Well, there was about 6.7 million we anticipated. Most of that, well, most 3.5 million of that, maybe 4 million, went to additional classes and
All right.
teachers. Okay. If you look at the balance of the rest of the funding that was spent, and you look at the educational master plan, you'll see that all that money was tied very specifically to the goals in the educational master plan.
Right.
So basically, we took that amount of money and we allocated it per the educational master plan, and that's what we did.
Okay.
And that was distributed throughout here. But as we get into a little bit later in the meeting here, we're going to actually talk about more specifically how we're going to do a better job at tying planning and budgeting together. And we're actually going to start a little exercise today that actually does that. Okay.
And one more question. On the TRAN, it shows that we borrowed the money. Now, I was at the board meetings when they talked about the TRAN. Have we used that money yet, or is it sitting in an account gaining interest to pay off the interest that we
No,
owe?
that money was used.
It was used.
Because if you remember the one of the May cash flow projection, and you'll see how we started the beginning cash balance of June with minus $208,947.
Okay, I'm sorry, which one? We're on this one? Okay.
Yeah. The state owed us 26 million, was it? Let me look at that real quick. Okay, between the enrollment protection account and the deferral buybacks, the district is owed a total of $37 million.
All right.
Okay? We were to receive, and did receive, $16.1 million on June 24th. Okay? We were then to receive, and we'll see if we do receive, another $10 million on July 5th of 2013.
Okay.
Okay? We are still owed another $11 million. We don't have any idea yet when we're going to get that money. Okay? That's an IOU from the state. So the reason why I mention that in this context is because the TRAN money was basically cashed right around the latter part of April, mid-April to late April, in order to cover the cash needs of the district at that time. It continues to take somewhere between $8 and $10 million a month to fund district operations. And the budgeting process, and the budget of course is an estimate, but the budgeting process is an accrual process, whereas cash is what operates things on a daily basis. Okay, so even though, for example, it shows that we think we might end the year with $21 million, that's not $21 million cash in the bank.
Okay.
That's what's owed us in one form or another.
Okay. If I hear you correctly, it sounds like we're still owed about 10 million, over 10 million.
11.
But as soon as we get it, we're gonna have to pay that back to the tram.
That's a good point, Dan. Exactly right. What happens is that what we've done is we've used the tax and revenue anticipation note money,
Yeah.
and we've used interfund borrowing,
Okay.
okay, from a cash point of view to keep us going.
Okay.
Okay, so that deferral money should not be looked on as new money. It's just money that we'll use to pay ourselves back from the things that we've done. Thanks. That's a good clarification. Okay, so that's so where we are for 12-13. That's pretty much where we are now. Next month when we meet, we'll have a much clearer picture. We'll have more numbers and more clarification. We'll be getting closer to closing the books. Those of you who, some of you actually may have actually been impacted by this, but the auditors are here. This is auditing season. We have a new auditing firm, Vicente Lloyd and Stutzman. They've been here all week doing their field work, and so they are deeply into looking at all these things and asking all kinds of good questions. And I was talking to the auditor right before I came in here, and she says we're looking pretty good so far. So that's a good thing.
And EOPNS came out with flying colors.
Good. There you go. That's what we want. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear.
A little stressful, but it was okay. Bob, can I ask a question too about the lottery money? Is lottery money only used for academic divisions? I mean, is it only distributed to academic divisions?
It's used for instructional purposes.
For supplies and things
Yeah,
like that?
for example, the
Okay.
library gets a good chunk of lottery
Right.
money.
Right.
So I believe that it's used I think it's by law, it states it has to be used for instructional
Okay.
purposes, I
Okay.
believe.
All I need to know. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so,
Bob?
yeah.
I have two questions. One, I understand that over the weekend, there was a Nike commercial and the school got paid for it. One, where does that money fit into the various sections there? And two, is the school doing enough to try to have more commercials of that nature to acquire more cash for the school?
Yes. The answer is, we actually received $15,000 from the production company who produced the Nike spot, and we rented the stadium to them. And that money goes into, and we'll get into a presentation in a few minutes, but it goes into the local revenue pot. I'll have it here. And it's what we call it civic center permit money. And we rent out things on a regular basis. Yeah. So it's in what we call local funding. So if you're under local funding, that's where that money gets deposited. And we'll get even more specific. The answer to your question is we are trying to expand that kind of operation. That's what we call the revenue enhancement stuff. We do have challenges with production companies and things with our neighbors across the street on the south side of Del Mar. It was one of the calls that I got and Joe got on Sunday at home regarding that Nike filming, and there was a discussion about whether those stadium lights would be on after 10 o'clock at night or not, and the neighbors were not happy, and by agreement they were not on, but yeah, so the answer is we're doing more of that.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's keep on moving on here. In the item number 6, Community College League of California State Budget Agreement document. Right. this is a good summary of where things are now. You are all probably aware that the governor has not yet signed the budget, but it's every likelihood that he will. There's some debate about trailer bills, but also the Public Records Act, the disclosure thing, and who pays that. And that's literally what's slowing things up right now. But it's anticipated that he will sign. From a community college point of view, basically, this is what community colleges got. We got something called enrollment restoration, and I'll talk more about that later. But basically, to restore workload that had been taken away from us, plus to fund growth, is 1.63% of additional money that we will get to do that, assuming we hit our growth numbers. Then there is a cost of living adjustment, or what's commonly known as a COLA, and there's 1.57% COLA. So those are the two primary large sources of funds. In addition to that, those of you who've been working here in the community colleges for a long time remember something called matriculation dollars. Those matriculation dollars are now called student success dollars. At one point, those dollars were as much as $100 million, and then from 2007-8, when the bottom fell out, all of that was reduced down to as low as $50 million. So in the negotiations this year, they were able to get another 49, kind of bringing us back to where we were back in 2006-7 or something like that, back in those days. So we, PCC, will get some additional portion of the $49 million. So it's 50 plus 49. 49 is the new money, so we'll get some of that. Prop 39 energy efficiency dollars, that was a proposition that was approved by the voters at the last go-around. The dust settled, community colleges are going to get $48 million of that. We have already applied for about $888,000 worth of funding that would go into energy efficiency projects. Everything from solar, some solar operations and more efficient boilers and things like that. Yes, sir.
I actually had a question because I remember.
And by the way, this is John Frazier. For those of you who do not know, John is our new ASB
Thank
president.
you.
Welcome.
I think it was about a year ago, there were discussions of getting a fuel cell on campus, if I'm not mistaken, and I am curious because that would be revenue generation, and I feel like it would fall under the Prop 39.
It's a good question to ask of the Facilities Standing Committee, and Ruben Smith, who's our executive director. There was discussion for several years about a fuel cell project. That discussion, as far as I've heard, has sort of gone into the back burner, no pun intended, in favor of some other projects that they're talking about right now. But Ruben would be a good guy to talk to about that. I don't have the exact answer for you right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so we've got an application in for $888,000, and we actually might do better than that because, as it turns out, not every college is in a position to propose something right now. So it's very likely that there'll be a little bit more left of the pie for those who are submitting to share in. So we're hopeful we'll get more than that. Deferred maintenance. The state has not funded scheduled and/or deferred maintenance for many years, probably 6, 7, 8 or more years. So they're putting into the budget $30 million, and again, we will be able to apply for some of those monies. It's a matching, dollar for dollar thing. Now, that does not impact the general fund. It'll impact our Fund 41, our capital outlay, and our fund, I think it's Fund 42, our scheduled maintenance fund. But that's more money coming into us to deal with our deferred maintenance, which is good. Online education coordination access, there is a $16.9 million amount of money available. The long story there is that money is likely going to be towards being invested in perhaps trying to get volume discounts tied to learning management systems, perhaps trying to come up with some type of master online courses in certain disciplines. The whole idea is and this is Governor Brown's, one of the things that he wants to do, is to try to help the community colleges, and I believe the CSU got some of money as well, to create more of a consortial arrangement towards online education for, yes.
How much approximately are we paying for Canvas a year right now?
Good question. I knew the Blackboard amount. 38,000?
Really?
No, I'm sorry. It's closer to
75?
100,000. It's closer to
Okay, all right.
$100,000. 38,000 is the Blackboard Connect.
Okay.
It's closer to 100,000
All right. Yeah,
annually.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's right. Okay, and then EOPS and DSPS. Both of those programs had great, strong lobbyists this year, and they both resulted in getting allocations of additional $15 million per program. So again, we will share in some amounts of those monies. And then CalWorks as an entity, which is basically a program that helps employ students while they're going to school, among other things.
Single parents.
Is it
Children.
single parents?
Parents with children, yes.
Okay. They got an increase of $8 million, and the statewide academic senate got an increase of $150,000. So that's pretty much where we are on the state level as far as the budget. And now part of our challenge is to dissect all of this and figure out what amounts of this is going to end up coming to our community college. For those of you who are not aware, there's 112 California community colleges and 72 districts, and everybody's involved in the same exercise right now. Okay, so that's that.
Okay, wait, before we leave
Yeah.
that one, this is all very good news, but I gotta ask you about one thing.
Mhm.
When we talk about enrollment restoration, cost of living adjustments, you mentioned that it assumes that we meet our growth numbers. Did we meet our FTE requirement for 2012, 2013?
Yes, and I'm gonna roll into that right now.
Okay.
Okay, but let me answer your question specifically. We had, including growth, we had a target of 19,630 credit FTES and probably another 3,800 to 4,000 non-credit, if I remember correctly. We are collecting on every bit of that FTES. That now known as Summer 1 is what brought us to that place.
Okay.
And then, which we do in any given year. If we don't quite make it, we can borrow a little bit from the incoming, and that's normal. That's the way that we normally, every community college district does business, to make sure that they hit those targets. Now, in past years, as everybody knows, PCC and many community colleges exceeded their funded FTES.
Yep.
And we were doing that for many years, as many others were. This year, that didn't happen. This year, we came right in and we hit it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you about the extended spring that's now Summer 1. In the email that was sent out by Dr. Bell, it looked like the school had a choice between making it spring and letting the students get the credit, or pushing it off to summer. Is that what happened? We had to make a choice between the two?
I'm not sure I understand your
Okay.
question. Yeah.
All right. The email went out, and basically the impact was that the students who thought they were going to get credit for extended spring were not going to get credit for extended spring. And if you read the email, it said, blah, 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 blah. We are complying with the Chancellor's Office directive in order to qualify for 2013 summer apportionment to the college. In other words,
Well, okay, I'm going to answer it, but
Okay.
I don't want to get into a long story about
All
what
right.
happened here. The long and the short of it is that there was discussion with the Chancellor's Office. The Chancellor's Office said, yes, you can do this.
all right.
In subsequent discussion with the Chancellor's Office, they changed their mind and said, well, maybe you can't do this.
Okay.
So in order to do two things, A, make sure that no students were harmed in the process,
Right.
and B, to make sure that we didn't put what would essentially have been, it turned out it's going to be about $5.5 million or $6 million,
Right.
but the number originally was about $7.2 million of FTS at risk. We decided to say, okay, extended spring is now Summer 1, and that will allow us, with no questions asked, to claim it as 12-13 apportionment. That was one thing. And then, as everyone knows now, there was some number of students Last count was 133 who had reported some level of concern, but only really 41 had actual provisional admissions that were caught up in this. Now, as Dr. Bell's email indicated a couple of days ago, and I'm very excited to say, these strike teams have been very, very successful in contacting the universities, and most thus far are being very supportive. You know, UCA, USC, UCLA, UCI, Humboldt, Long Beach, Cal Poly, these are just off the top of my head, but they're all coming back saying, yeah, well, it's okay.
I'll add to that. We're expecting a letter from the UC President's Office shortly that will state that all UCs will accept the courses.
Yeah, so it's very good news, and a lot of people have worked very, very hard. Cynthia Olivo has led the charge, but it's really exciting to know counselors and classified staff and you know, all kinds of people have jumped in, you know, for the good of our students, and it seems to be working. So we've resolved the fiscal concern. We've resolved the students' concerns, we believe, and now we're just working our way through the financial aid piece of this, and then we'll be over it. We'll be past it.
Bob, I gotta ask, we've been running into a lot of problems since our decision to eliminate winter into session. It's affecting student academic goals and their academic plans, and it's affecting our budget. Are we going to reconsider reinstating winter into session?
It's a negotiation matter, and I'm not going to touch that with a 50-foot pole, let alone a 100-foot pole.
Okay.
It's, you know, yeah. Okay. And it's a board decision, is what it boils down to, and you know, I know it'll be discussed at the July 7th board meeting, so there you go. Or July 17th board meeting. John, and then Austin, and then over here.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we would have lost out on full-time equivalency students. I guess I have really two questions. The first being, so if we added the sections that were counted in extended spring to any different session, or let's say the summer that was summer 2, I guess. If we added the sections to summer 2, would those be counting towards the summer, I guess, FTES count for PCC?
No, you can do whatever you want with your with summer enrollments. 1, 2, summer you can do anything you want. And again, in normal operations, and I really don't want to turn this meeting into a discussion of this, folks, so I'm going to try to wrap this up here pretty quick. But in normal operations, any district can do whatever they deem in the best interest of the district relative to claiming apportionment for the trailing year or for the coming year. It depends on how you're managing your assessment and your income and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So this incident had nothing to do with that type of situation.
Oh, okay. Then in that case, would the college be willing to, I guess, share the email from the chancellor's office, basically giving us an ultimatum on whether or not we are going to accept these as spring or summer courses?
Okay. I have no idea what you're talking about, John,
Okay.
and that's another question I wouldn't touch with a 40-foot pole. Okay, that's not appropriate for this meeting and this discussion. Sorry. Okay. Yes, Austin.
Oh, I just want a clarification. So you said that the extended spring classes were marked as summer, so there was full-time FTES for the 2012-2013 year?
In other words, courses that are offered in any summer of any given year can be claimed as trailing apportionment to the year that they are trailing, in this case 12-13, or they can be claimed in the year in which they are being generated. Because of the state's accounting, often those decisions are not made until several months later.
Yeah.
As all the numbers sort of bubble to the surface and people decide. In this case, we know, because we didn't go over FTS, we know that we want to, because and when I can get to this memo, I'll explain why. We know we want to make absolutely certain that we are maximizing out what we would get for 12-13 because of this workload reduction requirement that I'm about to talk to you guys about.
Oh, okay. So we wanted to count for 2012-13. I'm just confused. Can we just keep it as extended spring? Wouldn't that count for 2012-2013?
Because of the calendar decisions and the decision that the Chancellor's office is making, we've decided to do what we think is the prudent thing and not make an issue of it at the moment and just move forward.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, just because I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Victor?
Yeah, speaking of inappropriate questions, just wondering how come just one single email was sent out to students notifying them of this issue with transfer. Why isn't it on the front page of the website for PCC?
Inappropriate question. Thank you for asking that. Okay, moving on, but I appreciate that. I understand everybody's need to say what they need to say, but I want to kind of keep the form to what the form needs to be for here today. Thank you, though. Okay, so the other thing is, so on May 29th, or whenever the May board meeting was, I prepared an update regarding the budget for the board. And what I want to do is turn your attention primarily to page 2. And this is where I quickly went over for the board what the impact of the budget was as far as the May revise. And essentially what the May revise was, the conference committee made some adjustments, but essentially it's pretty much the same thing. I already mentioned about an item number 1 that in total we're owed $37 million and how that money is at some point going to come to us, at least at the time, and that nothing has changed there. I wanted to point out to you that deferrals as a concept are not over. That in fact the state is planning in its budget to defer something like $4 billion to all of the public agencies that it supports as it continues to work its way out of its financial hole that it's been in for the last 6, 7, 8 years. So that deferral will somehow filter down into the community colleges and will have to be dealt with. Okay, and then please remember that the deferral buyback funding is not new dollars. We talked about that a little bit earlier, thanks to Dan. These are funds due to the district that were not received in a timely manner that required borrowing, and it explains what we did to work our way through that. Now, the district is also owed something called RDA funds, or redevelopment agency monies. Some of you might recall very briefly that Governor Brown and the legislature a little over a year and a half ago now, I guess it is, maybe 2 years ago, decided that they were going to shut down redevelopment agencies. And they were going to ask all of those redevelopment agencies to return monies to the state that were not deemed supportive of redevelopment. In order to do that, they created a bunch of what's known as successor agencies. I happen to sit on 5 of those successor agencies representing our college. It's Pasadena, South Pasadena, Sierra Madre, Rosemead, and what was the other one? La Cañada. No, South Pasadena, Rosemead, Sierra Madre, and Arcadia, thank you. And so each one of those communities have redevelopment agencies. Each one of those communities are in the process of winding those redevelopment agencies down. Each one of those communities have to create what's known as successor agencies. And these boards have to decide what goes back to the state and what stays. It's an arm wrestle, it's a battle. Obviously the cities don't want to give up the money, the developers who are caught in the middle of it don't want to give up the money, so it's a bunch of legal fighting back and forth. The bottom line is that whereas the community colleges used to regularly get redevelopment money, they're not getting that now. At one point, Governor Brown thought that he'd be able to collect last year on the order of $3 billion or $3.8 billion, one of those two numbers. In reality, he only collected something on the order of $800 million, leaving this gaping hole of money. Thanks to one of our legislators, I don't remember who, there was a trailer bill that was put in place that said the state would make the community colleges harmless and make them whole in terms of that RDA money. The problem is no one sorted out when we would be made whole and how we would get our money. So what the Chancellor's office has been telling us, you're going to get your money, don't know when, we know you're owed this, but we're not sure when you're going to get it. So we are owed 1213 redevelopment agency funds, but again, we don't know exactly how much because of the crazy accounting that's taking place right now, and we don't know when we're gonna get it. But we know it's gonna come to us at some point, okay? And so that was that. Then, basically, the 1.57% of COLA, that's 87.5 million to the system. PCC usually gets about 1.8%, give or take, of that. So in our case, we should bring in about $1.5 million, $1.6 million. The May revise also includes what's known as restoration or growth funding, 1.63%. The number's about $89 million. Our share of that is in the neighborhood of 1.6, assuming we hit the FTES targets that they set forth for us for 13-14. Ophelia Ariano and her staff, assisted by Matt and others, are working on the numbers for 13-14. They'll be very, very, very aggressive targets. Credit will be 21,000 plus FTES, non-credit. So, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, so don't quote me, but they're going to be very aggressive targets. We're going to be doing a lot of instruction at this campus in 13-14, a lot. But and then we talk about the extra. What we think is our percentage of the extra matriculation dollars or student success and support dollars. I hesitated because I put a number of 900,000 in there. It's not going to be quite that much because of the fact that the number is a little bit less, but it'll be several hundred. It'll be probably close to that amount of money. And what's going to be good about that is when the matriculation dollars went from $100 million down to $50 million. Many colleges were forced to let go some of their 03 funded, unrestricted funded people. We opted to keep those people, and we shifted the payroll from restricted 03 dollars to unrestricted, i.e. we shifted it to the district. Now we'll be able to shift some of that payroll back, therefore have those extra dollars available to fund other things on campus. So in essence, that's additional revenue that we will get and be able to use elsewhere. So that's a good thing. Okay, and then there's a bunch of programmatic dollars. I kind of talked about that. Okay. Then we won't talk about 7 because that actually didn't happen. We wanted it to happen, but it didn't happen except for the $30 million that went to deferred maintenance. The online we talked about. And then the adult education, what actually that turned out to be was $25 million that has been set aside for planning grants, and over the next 2 years, where local community college districts and local either high school districts or K-12 districts will get together and develop regional consortia for the provision of adult education courses. So in our case, we will likely work with Pasadena Unified and Almani Union High School District. Those are the two districts that presently have adult education programs. And we will likely enter into a relationship with them to be part of this, to be a funding entity. So at the end of 2 years, when these planning grants are in and submitted, then they're looking at, and for some reason the number $500 million sticks in, yeah, it's right there. $500 million in new funding for adult education will be provided, according to the governor, 2 years from now. That will go to these regional consortia for the provision of adult education. Adult education are typically ESL classes, high school diploma program classes, GED, some skills training on very specific areas, that type of thing. Presently, that is done by our community education center on Foothill. Now, and then I talked a little bit about Prop 39. Now, the next one, the workload restoration. This is kind of important. In 2009-10 and in 2011-12, as the state was struggling with its funding issues, it reduced the work. They did what they call workload reductions. So, of the they went to all 72 of those community college districts that had 112 colleges in them, and they said, okay, whereas in the past you received X amount of credit FTES and X amount of non-credit FTES, you now are going to be reduced. So in 9-10 they did that, and then in 11-12 they did that. In 9-10 they reduced our FTES by 816, a total of 816 credit non-credit FTES. That represented $3.6 million in less revenue that the college got. In 11-12, they took 1,700 credit and non-credit FTS, and that resulted in about $7.65 million less money than we got. So when you add that together, that's about 11.2, 11.3 in less revenue. Okay. They are now saying that districts must make that FTES up in 13-14 and some portion of 14-15 if they want it back. Now that's what they're saying now. That could change, but that's what they're saying now. So we then, if we want to get our base restored to effectively what it was in 2007-8, as I recall, we've got between this academic year and next academic year to get that done. And if we're successful at getting that done, then our base is permanently, he says with quotes, but it's permanently brought back to the 2007-8 level, and we effectively gain back $11 million in revenue that we're not getting now. Yes, Julie?
So are we talking about the 21,000 students we were talking about at number 3-4? Or are we talking 21,000 plus almost 2,000?
What we're talking about, we've got to restore over the next two years about 2,500 more FTES. That's the goal. And that 21,000 includes some of that. I'm not sure. I don't remember how that all calculates out right now because I haven't really studied it yet. But it's part of the plan going forward, as far as I know, right?
Yeah.
Matt's saying yes. So we're planning for that.
But we're trying to hit 23.
Well, no, I think what Matt's, if I'm right, Matt, you want to speak?
No, I don't want to speak.
Okay. All right. So we'll get clarification on that.
All
I'm
right.
not sure if we're trying to hit.
Smart
All I
Yeah, I
know
didn't
is.
understand how we're.
I
mean, that's a
understand your
lot of-
question.
Yeah.
It's a lot of classes, it's a lot of everything.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk more about how we're going to try to deal with that. And believe me, this is actually leading towards a budget discussion. This is all, I mean, it's all, I think it's important background to
It
understand.
really is.
Okay. Okay, so anyway.
Bob, can I
yes.
just ask the question, if we exceed the FTES and other colleges do not?
That's a good question, and because you're right, and I wanted to say that, so thank you for that. There's two things that'll happen. For those colleges who are not successful in restoring to the base that they once had, the colleges that are successful and go beyond that will have their bases raised even more. In other words, the excess money that's left over will go to those colleges who were able to go to the next level, whatever that level was. Those colleges who don't make it will be, again, permanently set at the lower base. Okay? So they're basically saying we're going to give you all a year and a half to make back what we took away from you. Now, most of the college districts are not happy about that, so most will be speaking to a variety of folks to try and probably stretch that time out longer. But since this is the game that we know about, this is the game that we have to play, this is the game that we will play to try to make that back.
Well, if we do exceed that and then they change their mind, we've kind of gambled. Is that right? I mean, it is a gamble.
I think what I was actually referring to is the length of time. The length of time seems unreasonable to me. Basically, they force you to take something down for a long period of time.
Yeah.
You know, and now they're forcing you to try to make it up at a very competitive time, because just as we are offering a zillion courses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is Glendale, so is Citrus, so is Mount Sac, so is Chaffey, so is Rio Hondo. Everybody's in the same workload restoration mode right now. So students have lots of options, which is good for the students, but they've suffered a long time waiting for those options to come to them. So, you know, it's a strange world we live in that regard.
No,
Denise.
just one question, and it might be good for Matthew. Are you listening to me?
Yes.
No, just kidding.
She can be,
Had to take
No,
a
she can be very
family
tough.
had to come
She can be
down.
very tough.
Does
Let's
this
talk to your
look
kids one of
good?
these days.
No, no, they'll say I'm a great mom.
I'm sure you are.
Do you, will this, since there's 18-month period, it's gonna roll into accreditation, correct? Is this gonna look good in coming to accreditation, that our FTES is up higher than the
I
norm?
don't think from an accreditation point of view, this has a lot to do with it. Ophelia, you just walked in at the right time.
Oh, yeah.
And I can only be here for a short time.
Okay,
but-
no,
Oh,
I think from an accreditation point of view, and Matt might be able to speak to this, they're not gonna, they're gonna wanna know that the systems are working.
They
You
don't
wanna
care?
speak to, they don't really care about this.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I was
They
just
don't
wondering.
Oh, I'm so surprised.
That was just my
What they'll
concern
care
on
about
that.
is that collegially, how did we work, how did we come about, how do we try to resolve it, how do we work together, they'll care about that, but whether we hit it or don't hit it, they won't care
That
about.
doesn't, that's not gonna be like to do, okay, that's fine, thanks.
Okay,
Okay.
so, we were just chatting a little bit, Ophelia, about the workload restoration and our challenge to try to get that 2,500 back and all that kind of stuff, and, I was, verbalizing some general numbers about credit FTS that goals for 13-14, I didn't quite remember what they were. And the question that Julie asked was whether or not, that number included some of the goal of trying to get this 2,500 back or not, or is that just to aggressively hit the 13-14 number from the state?
Okay, are you talking about the work that we're doing to look at our FTS allocation to meet funding, baseline funding for 13-14?
Yes, and
Okay.
on top of that, we've got that 2,500 we need to try to make up the 9-10 and the 11-12 reduction. So
Right.
that, so
Ooh,
Julie's,
I didn't bring my information.
but
I'll-
Julie's basic question was, did we exceed the 13-14 number but, and try to make some of that 2,500 back, or is that 2,500 still on top of that we gotta try to make back?
Okay. What I'm looking at in terms of our FTS targets for 13-14 is to look at when there was workload reduction from 2009-10.
Right.
So that's the baseline, because that's when the state asked that every college cut FTS, and that's directly related to courses, both in credit and non-credit. Okay, so in looking at that baseline, we are then looking at our projections for 13-14 to restore the FTS at that baseline amount,
Yeah.
which is, don't quote me,
Right.
22,674 FTS,
take.
give or
Or so.
take. About 21,000 is pluses in credit,
Great.
and about 1,300 is in non-credit.
Great, okay.
Okay,
So the answer is yes, you are trying to recover some of that FTS, at least the 9-10 FTS, and then we'll kind of see where we are after that.
right, and I'm still working on the numbers because, we're looking at still having some of summer 2 counts towards our 13-14 baseline.
Yep.
It's about 400 FTS, or about 100 sections. I sleep and dream FTS.
Exactly, she does. She does, trust me.
And so we are then targeting fall and spring. However, since we still have to include some summer 14 FTS into the 13-14 baseline, those are the numbers I'm still working on. And I will have those updated to Mr. Miller soon. But that then translates into needing to add quite a few more sections, and that's what I'm trying to figure out right now for fall, for spring, and then if because we still have some of that summer that goes to the 13-14 baseline. So I will have those numbers hopefully tomorrow in terms of fine tuning the FTS, the sections, et cetera. But we're talking quite a bit from 12-13 in terms of the number of sections we're gonna have to add. I prefer to look at FTS because the section is not equal. So we are aiming towards that FTS target, but it means adding quite a few more sections.
Right,
Hundreds and hundreds of more sections to fall and spring.
right. And again, and Ophelia hit upon it, actually Ophelia has done a great segue into the budget development part of this discussion today. So you can grab one of those packets if you want.
Oh, I think I did.
Okay, all right, so this is going to be a very high-level discussion of getting us to the point by the next meeting of actually putting some hard numbers in front of you. We actually had a set of hard numbers that when we looked at them carefully yesterday, we realized they weren't hard enough, that they were still a little too squishy, and it wouldn't be good to put that stuff out there. It's technical. It's a high-level fiscal term, a little too whatever to present. So we decided not to. So let's just go to the first slide there, and then in very, very simple terms, we have income that comes to the district. We subtract from that income all of our fixed expenses, salaries and health and welfare and utilities and all that kind of stuff, and we then end up with whatever balance is left. The remaining balance funds what we call discretionary spending that would be in support of what might be additional critical needs. Okay, so just kind of bear that in mind as we go to the next slide here. So, in looking at that, I mentioned earlier we're going to have a 12-13 ending balance. At the moment, it's $1,017,000. Okay, could be lower. I'm willing to bet the $100 because I'm cheap that it's going to be higher. Okay, but for now there will be a carry forward ending balance of some dollar amount. Okay, the reserve is defined as two categories. One, the $12 million that the Board of Trustees has traditionally said for a district of our size, at minimum, we want to put $12 million as a reserve. Then we have what I would call a contingency operating reserve. God forbid an earthquake happens, the mirror pools start leaking all over the place, things happen, and we need money to deal with something else. Okay? So you got the $12 million that's there, then you've got another, $6 or $7 million. So we call that, just for the sake of discussion, a reserve of $19 million. Now, it's important also to state that's not cash. I wish it was cash. It's basically, from an accrual point of view, $19 million that if everybody paid us what we were owed, whether it's student enrollment fees, whether it is the state of California, and everything in between, we'd have $19 million. The president of the college, others would love to get to the point where we could literally put $12 million at least in a lockbox of cash in a fund earning interest that it actually is real money. But that's just not the reality right now. And indeed, the truth of the matter is, I think, well, I shouldn't say it because I don't know, but I don't know if there's that many districts who actually have cash in the bank. But anyway, $19 million. Now, on top of that ending fund balance and on top of that reserve, we will have some amount of income. Income defined as federal income, state income, and local income. And we'll talk about that. And then against that, the ending balance, the reserve, and the income, there'll be some kind of a fixed expense that we will subtract from that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Then you're going to have what I would call a balanced budget. In other words, the income and the expenses matched, and whatever's left becomes that which will fund quote-unquote critical needs. Now, we're going to talk a little bit today about what those critical needs are. There's some that are suggested to you. We're going to open it up for discussion and say, what other critical needs do you think we have? And we're going to write those down. And then in a month from now or so, when we get together, we'll have a better idea of the budget. We're going to see how much actual money we have for critical needs. And then, based upon Brac's discussions, we might collectively decide where that money is going to go, hence a linkage between planning and budgeting, at least an initial linkage, the beginnings of such that we can begin to show as a process. Okay, and I know that Matt and Stephanie and others are working on the planning plan and what have you. Now, there's one important thing, and I just want to point your attention to the asterisk by this word critical needs. We want to drive FTES. We want to drive the addition or the creation of full-time equivalent student income, which, by the way, we collect roughly $4,560 or wherever it is per FTES.
What was that? 500 and what?
for credit.
That's credit, yes.
Yes, $4,560, give or take, per credit FTS, about $3,200 for non-credit enhanced, and about $2,600, give or take, for just regular non-credit. Enhanced is defined as ESL, AB, some ABE, adult high school diploma, vocational certificate. It means for some reason, somebody decided they get, anyway, it doesn't matter what they decide. So you got 3 levels of funding, okay? Now, if we drive FTS higher on a reduced and more efficient expense base. So what does that mean? That means the less money we have to spend to generate that FTS, the better off we are, because the greater the delta between income in and expense out, and that delta becomes what we can spend on critical needs, additional things. So, in plainer English, because I probably just didn't speak English, but in plainer English, basically, if we did more LGI classes, if we were able to offer courses that we know are the courses that all students need, or not all, but that many students need, and therefore enroll in a very efficient way. If we're able to offer online classes that may therefore result in having more availability of classrooms to put more classes in because we don't have students here all the time. If we are able to generate revenue from international students and out-of-state students and what have you. In other words, more efficient ways to generate the FTS that we collect right now will result in additional funding that we can use for critical needs. That's just in general. So again, the enrollment management team is looking at ways, working with faculty and deans, to try to do more of that.
And you also have income from your fee-based courses.
And then income from our fee-based courses, contract education, the extension classes, all of these things that generate income at less expense. It's a goal, it's a topic, it's a target, and it'll provide more money to do other things. Okay? So now, let's turn over my page and try to read that. We'll get the projector fixed, folks, I apologize for that. So what exactly are income and fixed expense categories? Here's some pretty simple, these are some examples. We talked about the fund balance. Federal grants are just that, Title V grants, various sources of income that come in that are federal funded. State, we have what we call Fund 01. The word unrestricted is there because it basically says you get the money by way of FTES, by way of these things, apportionment. We put the deferral dollars there because we know there's money coming to us based upon deferrals. We talked about the growth or the restoration dollars, the redevelopment agents money, and then the education protection account monies, which basically prop up and guarantee, Prop 98, to guarantee that the funding is there for at least the next 7 years. That's unrestricted. We can spend that any way that we want to. Then you have what's known as Fund 03 restricted dollars, and examples of that, disabled student DSPS dollars, EOPS dollars, the so-called student success funds, and miscellaneous discretionary funds such as the online money we talked about, Prop 39, deferred maintenance CalWorks. In other words, all these monies come with strings. All these monies come to us saying you can only spend them on very prescriptive things. So A, it's great because we get the money to provide the services, but B, sometimes we can use that money to relieve some of the pressure on 01 dollars, and therefore, to be able to use some of those 01 dollars to do other things. So that's another source of funding. And then finally, local funding, student fees, $44 per unit. That money is collected. However, we do not keep that money. That money goes right back to the state, and what they call a triple dip, or a triple something or other, where this is what Marie was talking about yesterday, where you collect the money, and let's say you collect $10 million, they just take that $10 million off the top of your apportionment payment. So you bring it in. So it's local funding, but you really can't spend it. You gotta you can
This-
spend it, but the point is that they reduce your apportionment as a result of it. And then tuition fees are for international and out-of-state students. Property taxes, and then miscellaneous such as that civic center revenue that we talked about earlier. Okay, so what exactly is a fixed expense? Well, there's many of them, but these 7 we know are going to increase this year. We know we're going to be funding step and column increases for our faculty and our staff. We know we're going to have health, welfare, and benefit increases, and it's going to average about 8% increase. We know our property and liability insurance is going to go up. Yes, Julie?
That 8%, how many years do we get something like $2 million?
Oh, not very
That
often.
doesn't
No-
happen
No.
often?
I think that was a one-time thing, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
what it is, that accumulated over about 3 to 5 years. And it has to do with experience rates. If we have low experience rates in a given year, let's say on our Anthem Blue Cross, then a portion of our premium is held for us in a reserve fund that we get to control. But if we have a high experience rate, then we don't get anything back that year. I don't think though that they charge us more, we just don't get anything back. But the higher the experience rate, the greater the premium increase the following year.
Right.
When we started with Anthem Blue Cross this year, they started out, Joe helped me, 15.9% increase. They ended at 9.9,
Yes.
at 9.9.
And they were projecting even higher than the 15.9.
That's right. At one point, they're, I think, almost 21%, I heard Roseanne say. Kaiser went up 9% this year, and the Anthem HMO went up 6.9?
Went up to 9%. Did not go up 9%.
Oh, went up to 9% from,
7.9. I think.
okay, so it went up a couple points.
Is Obamacare expected to help relieve any of this?
Yes and no. We're trying to figure it out. The Healthcare Recovery Act is something, the Accountability Care Act of America, I guess is what it's called. The long and the short of that is we don't know yet, but we are going to be gearing up this year. Our Benefits Committee is going to come together, a Shared Governance Benefits Committee. We're having Keenan and Associates come in and do first a complete and thorough education session for everybody before we even start talking about services and numbers and programs or what have you. We're all going to get educated, and then collectively we'll go through this. There's a thing called Cadillac taxes. You may have heard that expression. Those of us that are in public employment typically have very good coverage, and the Affordability Care Act of America basically penalizes entities for that coverage, and they tax as a result of it. There are requirements for those who work 30-hour weeks
Mhm.
to start getting benefits. I mean, there's all kinds of things in here that are going to impact us as early as 2014.
Yeah, but depending on when our benefit year starts, and from what I understand, the district's benefit year starts in October. So it's not January 2014 for us. January 2014 is when it goes into effect.
October.
But depending on the employer's benefit plan, it starts at that moment in
Yeah.
time. So we'll be doing a study to look at all those things.
Yeah, we're
the
going to
30
be
hours.
digging very deep into that, and that'll be very much a shared governance thing, because at the end of the day, it's going to impact every one of us in some form or fashion. Okay, so on average, though, when you add all that stuff up, it goes up about 8%. Property and liability insurance, workers' compensation, we were trying to sort that out yesterday a little bit, but we've had a lot of workers' comp claims of late. So we're going to have to add probably at least $300,000 more to that fund this year. It's a self-insurance thing. We'll talk about that. We agreed and are funding 10 new faculty positions in 13-14. So that becomes added to our fixed expense. That guy over there is very expensive, and he needs more money for accreditation. So we are. So actually, Stephanie too. Between the two of them, they're very expensive. So we have to add money to that account to fund that, and then school safety. One of the things that will happen by the time the fall starts, August 26th semester starts, there'll be interior locks on every door, every classroom door. And that's just part of what we're going to be doing to kick off. I don't like the term, but it's the term, the active shooter plan for that and some other things. So we're having to invest some money into that. So those are just examples. If you flip the page, now we get into some things that might be called critical needs. Okay? So, over the years, through freezes and, well, through non-replacement of positions and other things, the district has probably taken a hit on the classified side of at least 50 positions or more. And so we are down a lot of support positions. Plus, we need some new and different types of positions, such as a risk manager and some other things. So, right now, Dr. Bell and I are engaged in working with all of the managers in our areas and identifying what we would hope to be positions that might be considered. And if there was money to fund these positions, we would be ready to present. We are ready to present those.
Can I
Yes,
make
ma'am.
a addition to that for additional personnel? If we're talking about 10% more students and we have approximately 300 and something full-time faculty, it seems like we should be adding about 10% more faculty.
Yeah, and we have, and you're, you know, so there's what's known as a full-time faculty obligation number. Ours is 372. Okay, we funded by adding these 10, we're going to land somewhere around 380 to 384. So we are above the so-called full-time faculty obligation number. That doesn't mean we can't add more full-time faculty, doesn't mean we won't. It means that that's something that will be considered in the mix. And we're assuming, and this is on Dr. Bell's side of the house, so I can't really speak to it, but if the deans of the areas have needs, they are identifying those needs through Ophelia's office and Dr. Bell's office, and they'll come to the table.
Is that our obligation in 19,600 students or at 23,000 students?
It's an obligation based upon a history and a formula. So what happens is every year, it's not based upon what you might hit, it's based upon the actual data that you did hit.
Okay.
So
It trails a little bit.
It'll trail.
okay.
Everything in this business seems to trail 12 to 18 months, at least, usually. Okay, so additional personnel, now the El Monte Union High School District adult school lease, that's an interesting one. El Monte came to us probably 3 months or so ago and said, we can no longer afford to operate the Rosemead Adult School, which is on Rosemead Boulevard in Rosemead. And it's a building that was built in 1998. It has, I think it's 15 very nice classrooms, nice atrium area. It has kind of an outbuilding with 3 more classrooms. It's got parking. It has all those kinds of things. And they wanted to know if we wanted to take it on as a satellite center. We looked at it. We talked about it. We said, well, probably not for 13, 14 because we've got too many irons in the fire, but 14, 15 to be something that we might have interest in. A lot happened in the last 90 days with the budget and the this and the that, and Ophelia woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, Rosemead Adult School.
Yes, I
Something
did.
like that. And
FTES.
Yeah, exactly. FTES. And the long and the short of it is that if everybody agrees, or at least I think the recommendation is going to be, and assuming the board agrees, we very well might enter into a 3-year lease to lease that building. And there's 2 advantages to that. One, not only more classroom space to offer, there's 3 advantages, but more classroom space to offer more classes. 2, we have not really well served that part of our district, what I might call the southeast part of our district, for decades, right? In fact, any number of students will tell you that it could take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours by bus to get from Rosemead to this campus with all of the different connections it take. And it could take as long as a half hour or longer just in a car to get here for one reason or another. As a result of that, Rio Hondo has been eating our lunch for decades. In fact, they established a satellite campus there in El Monte not too long ago. So we really believe that there's a number of students who would really prefer to go to Pasadena City College if we can get closer to them. So in terms of general education courses, basic skills courses, a place for online and hybrid type courses and so on and so forth. So that's something we are looking seriously in to help with the space needs that we have. So that's that could be considered a critical need. Instructional equipment, marketing dollars. I mentioned to you that all these other colleges around us are all fighting for the same students right now. So some of you may have seen some buses driving around town that have the PCC thing on them.
Yeah.
If you ride the metro, there's things in the metro right now.
I
There's
heard a commercial. I heard a commercial.
That's right. We've got radio ads going on Kiss FM and other stations. We also have a lot of social media stuff. Facebook, Google ads is going on right now. So we're investing to try to attract students. Now, we haven't had to do that for some years, and now we're in that business. So there's additional costs associated with that.
Is there a number we're expecting to get as a result of spending X amount of dollars? So by spending this amount, we expect to get these additional students?
You know, I wish I could say yes. I'm not sure if there is or there isn't, but
I can speak to that a little
thanks, man.
somewhat, which is that all of the advertisements direct students to a particular web address to register.
Yes.
And so one's office can track the number of students that are going through and registering. So in terms of a certain dollar amount, you know, again, it goes into, do they register for courses, does it generate FTES? But he is able to assess the effectiveness of the advertisement and draw the students in to register.
Okay, but before, when they came up with the idea, hey, let's do this, was there the idea, if we do this, if we spend X amount of dollars, we probably might get X amount of students? That was not done?
Well, I don't know if I don't want to be unfair. I don't know if it was
Right.
done or not. I think it was the general sense you have to advertise and market. You have to get yourselves in front.
At least we can, with this, by tracking, we can at least know what we got.
We hope so. And if we didn't, if it's not working, then we. But again, it's you don't know if that bus impression plugged something in here and it resulted in something down the road. All advertising is kind of that way. You just you know it's hard to know sometimes unless you do focus groups and
And
things.
it's my understanding that we have not been actively marketing, and we haven't for many, many years because of, you know, people just love to come to PCC. And now because of workload reduction, restoration, and needing to establish our baseline to get that required funding, we have to really focus on marketing.
And if we market, if we mount courses that students need and we market it, I think I saw something again. We are ranked among the top 10 community colleges in California, in something that came out yesterday. We continue to have great reputation as a transfer institution, as a degree institution, so. And 63% of our institutions of our students come from outside of the district anyway. So that's why the radio advertising kind of made some sense, because people come to us if they can. So,
What was that?
63%.
I'll just add one thing that Juan often likes to say, he likes to compare us to Santa Monica, that has an annual marketing budget of $1 million.
And we don't.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
I've seen their ads though for Santa Monica College around before.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, well, it always tweaks me when a bus drives by with a Santa Monica ad goes right by our front door.
Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, okay. Then HR, professional development. There's two types of professional development activity going on right now. The faculty have used and are beginning to use even more of our Student Access and Success Initiative funding to create what they call the Academy for Professional Learning, APL, or APPLE for short. So much of the faculty and much of the Lancer Point training, particularly the faculty training, is being done by APL this summer, for example. If you look at our educational master plan, a big chunk of that actually speaks to professional learning, professional development. So the Academy for Professional Learning is really going to be the body that basically delivers on that promise. However, HR does a lot of, or it should be doing more professional development in the areas of compliance, whether it's OSHA compliance, whether it's sexual harassment training compliance, whether it's all these other diversity and all that kind of stuff.
Mandated trainings.
Mandated training. So we need to consider providing them a little more resources to be able to do that. And then finally, the Student Access and Success Initiative, which the self-study will be very grateful that we did, because much of the educational master plan goals that we talked about are being helped along by many of the Student Access and Success Initiative projects, which also funded things, like a lot of our labs on campus, a lot of our activities and things like that. So we'll have to consider that. So this is a list of 6 critical needs, assuming we have monies that we can spend after we're done with our fixed expenses. Okay? So, right now, we will hit a budget that is balanced using available dollars to cover all fixed expenses. Beyond that, we hope to have a pot of money that we can spend on other things. Those other things are some of the things that we'll talk about at this table. There are things that will be talked about at the collective bargaining tables. Okay, we're not, because there are negotiations going on in collective bargaining circles that may draw down on funds, but those funds would then be part of the fixed expenses. So whatever's left, we can talk about. Hour and a half later, he finally shuts up.
A lot to say.
Yeah. So at this point, we can take some time to think about additional critical needs, or we can set a date for the next meeting, and at the next meeting, with all this stuff behind us, we can talk real numbers, the numbers that we have. We can talk about what available dollars we might have as a result of that, and we can develop our critical needs list. So we can spend a few minutes now, or we can do whatever the body wants to do at this point.
I think it might be nice to have a little time to think about it. I mean,
I'd
I'm
like
sure
to
we could share
say
some ideas.
something though.
Yeah,
before
go
Oh,
ahead.
sure.
Um,
Thanks, Ophelia.
The fact-finding report showed some comparative salary data with our 8 colleges. And even given everything that the college was estimating putting on the table, the faculty at PCC were 8th among 8 colleges. So we started 8th. Given expected increases, we were still number 8. And I am guessing that we are not alone on this campus in having borne the brunt of the fiscal crisis. So I believe that before we, as a college community, write a new budget, we need some honest salary comparison data with fiscally comparable districts and fiscally comparable areas to put the faculty and the staff right before we continue to have fantasy things. I think it's a critical need, because I want to tell you that the hiring pools were dismal this time. And I don't believe that we are going to continue getting the type of faculty we need in order to continue with PCC in the top.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I'll wait till this discussion is over, but I have another topic.
Okay, I'm not comfortable in responding to that other than accepting and hearing your message, because again, this is a shared governance consultative Brac thing. What you're referencing is a negotiation item.
No, I'm
between
not. I'm
district
talking
and-
about fact-finding. The district's documents at fact-finding.
Right, but
So
we're-
it's a fact document provided by the district.
Right, so, but again, what happens with that, where that all goes, is still in process in other places. I don't think there's anything that this body's gonna do to impact that one way or the other. I think as an individual, as an FA, as a group, anybody around this table can write whatever they want and say what they need to say and communicate it to the board and to others. But I don't think that we would take this up as a topic per se.
I don't want to discuss the budget and the needs for the
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, but as I tried to state a couple minutes ago, in the fixed expense category will be whatever the salaries and benefit expenses are. So they'll be plugged in above the line, so to speak, in fixed expense. So in terms of what you just referenced,
That would go there.
presumably that would be in part of that conversation and debated there. That's not part of what's left over for us to talk about.
In other words, if I can add to it, as part of the budget, whatever that outcome was, it automatically gets factored into that fixed
Automatically.
line on the budget.
Right. Before we get to what we would be allocating.
Yeah, so it's a bargaining conversation rather
Okay.
than a budget conversation.
The same topic, John,
Does
or
that make
because
sense?
Dan's?
It's a different topic, but it's under the critical needs category.
Okay, do you want to defer to John, or you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay.
Are you- okay.
Go.
Well, thank you. So there was talk when the Prop 30 revenue started coming in of, I guess, putting money towards the cross-cultural center, simply because there've been so many different requests. There was a women's resource center request. There's been now a dream center request. I'm wondering if that would be considered under the critical needs category.
We will add it as one of those items to consider, sure. Cross-cultural center. Yeah, I do recall those conversations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Bob, at this point, because we're talking about critical needs driving FTE growth, I think it is appropriate to bring up winter intercession again. If we added winter intercession, that would give us that window to squeeze in more FTE. It will give one more registration period for students to sign up for classes. If you recall, you were here, I think, when we did go to compressed calendar, and one of the strong points was we were competing with the for-profits schools who told students, you can sign up anytime, there's no registration period. We wanted to have 4 different registration periods to allow students to say, okay, whatever your schedule is, one more chance to get in here. So if we are trying to drive up that FTE, I think we really want to reconsider winter intercession.
Okay, again, because that whole topic, I hear you, I understood what you said,
Okay.
but again, because that whole topic is you know, it's being discussed in other forums, I just need to leave it at that, but I heard what you said.
Okay.
John?
You
Thank you.
have been mentioning that credit FTES has been lifted, so we want to increase our credit FTES. Is that true with non-credit FTES as well?
You know, Ophelia's left, but I think the answer is generally no, because the whole non-credit thing is being looked at statewide right now. So I can't say definitively no, but I'm pretty sure not really. Yeah.
Because
And also, there are not that many community college districts actually have non-credit programs. There's actually, of the 72 districts, I don't think there's more than 10 or 12 that have them. Because usually the K-12 districts have carried that mantle most of the time. The big ones are San Francisco, San Diego, I think it's North Orange County, PCC is one of them.
Santa Monica?
No, they don't do non-credit. What's the district, is it the one, Peralta, I think is the other one.
And we are almost always over cap on non-credit, aren't we?
Yeah, but it's not a big cap to begin with.
Okay.
We probably could generate more if we grew it. That's why we're interested in this regional consortia idea, frankly. There's probably more we can do there.
Are non-credit and fee-based the same thing, or are those two different things?
Different.
Mhm.
Non-credit is that 2,600 and 3,200 per FTES we talked about. The enhanced is 3,200, the non-enhanced is 26. These are round numbers. Fee is the PCC extension program that Elaine Chapman runs, and this is like any kind of like UCLA extension kind of program, and that generates a certain amount of revenue. And every year we're trying to grow that.
And that pays for itself.
And turns a profit. Okay, some years the profit is higher than other years. It's been tough for them the past 3 years because of the economy, but hopefully now things are good. The other thing that we're trying to get off the ground under Solomon's leadership and Elaine's leadership is contract education. The whole idea of going in and working with a company and doing a very specified type of, we build a widget, we don't need to know all the reasons why, how you got to building the widget, we just want to teach these guys how to teach this widget. And so there are contract education programs, and we're trying to build that out as well. And then we're still trying to grow international. In fact, we will be growing international. That's a big goal. Yes, sir.
Relative to international, we had talked once about purchasing property for dorms. Is there anything being done on that, like the Davis property or the Robert Loud property?
In a nutshell, there actually are developers that have bought the Loud property, and we are in conversations with them about getting them to fund the construction of some international student housing. And we're basically trying to convince them, and I think they're beginning to hear us, that when you look at Caltech, when you look at PCC, when you look at Fuller, when you look at Pacific Oaks, when you look at culinary arts design, when you look for the college or the art center, there's all these programs lure international students, and they all have the same problem, where to house these students. So by having a international housing complex that, you know, 2 or more of these institutions could share, we could pretty much guarantee residency, long-term residency. That particular developer's trying to put a hotel up over here on the Loud property in the north. They want to put up this 5 or 6 story high-end hotel over here, and it's other stuff going on. So we're trying, is what it. But we really cannot afford to build it ourselves.
Mhm.
We just can't. Yes. Jim?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, since that was a very interesting topic, for student dorms, I believe the Associated Students would be very interested in working together to try to get both international and regular student dorms together. It just builds a sense of like collegiality between the different students and community,
Right.
because then they feel like PCC is basically their second home.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely something we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, I wanna put forth for your consideration another critical need.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which is that over the last 2 years, faculty and staff have been working really diligently and doing comprehensive reviews of the programs that they teach in. And as a result of those reviews, they identified things that critical needs for improving their programs. But the division's existing operating budgets oftentimes don't have funds to implement the improvements that they're identifying they need to improve the student experience. And so I would put forth a critical need of some sort of program improvement budget.
We call it a program improvement fund.
Yeah, something like that, so that the release time for curriculum revision, all of these things that the programs are identifying can be implemented.
Yeah, very good. Let's do it. Yep. Okay, it's 4:15. So we've had a few of these critical needs. We'll come together again. We need a date in July.
I was trying to get July 25th. I just wanted to see if everybody's calendars were okay with that.
It's not good for me. It's the 1 week I'm taking off. But-
That's why I didn't do an actual date, because no one's here in July.
Right.
Or on a Thursday in July. Because that would leave us at the 25th or the 18th of July.
Check your calendar.
I'm okay with the 18th.
18th?
When's the next report from the state come out where we would have better numbers?
Well,
Okay, we'll try for the.
we don't know.
Cindy.
We don't really have that answer. I think that it would be more efficient for us to meet in the latter part of July than earlier in July.
For closing the books, right?
Because of our closing the books primarily.
Okay.
So other than John, and I know John,
Mm.
you hate to miss the meeting, but
No, I can send a rep.
can you? Okay.
So 25th, yeah.
So
Perfect.
2:30 on the 25th.
Mhm.
Will that work for us?
Yes.
Is it possible if it would be earlier than 2:30?
Want to try 1:30? How much earlier? I mean, I know people teach and other things.
No,
It's
I actually
that
have a
week.
class at
It's the
2:30.
week of the 29th, right?
So you guys want to try like 12:30?
I'm good with 12:30.
Is that everything? 12:30?
I'm just asking a question. When's the first week of summer school start?
It's already started this week.
Yeah, this
So we
week,
start the
24th.
The 24th.
But there's no second summer, right? Correct.
Well, the way
That's
this-
all. I'm just.
Yeah, the way
I'm
the
just-
term-
We're
I'm
basically
just as
in.
confused as every other student here.
Don't get us started.
Sorry.
Don't get us started.
That's an inappropriate question.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I'm not gonna apologize for an inappropriate
No,
question.
my God. Okay, so I think I heard 12:30 will work for folks?
Yeah.
So 12:30 on the 25th.
Okay, is your college council meeting that day?
I don't have it on here. Do I have it here? I don't have it on it. No, I do have a college council meeting, you're right. There is one at 10 o'clock, from 10 to 11:30 that day.
Oh, my God.
So you'll be sitting all day.
So we'll roll into 12:30. Okay, I want to thank everybody for your patience. I hope it was somewhat informative, and we'll go
That's great,
from there.
thank you.